Amanda Hall is the campaign director at Dream.org Justice. She's been directly impacted by the criminal legal system and has a personal passion and drive to end mass incarceration and to create a better world in its place. That's what we'll be talking with her about today on the Justice Counts podcast.
Welcome to Justice Counts, the podcast that goes beyond the law to what's important to you. Equal justice for all is a guidepost for our nation, but how do we achieve that? Here are your hosts, writer-commentator Bob Gaddy and novelist-attorney Mark M. Bello.
Before joining Dream.org Justice, Amanda was a policy strategist at the ACLU of Kentucky. Amanda was a leader of Kentucky's Smart on Crime, a broad-based coalition working for common-sense justice reforms that enhance public safety, strengthen communities, and promote cost-effective sentencing alternatives. Prior to policy work, Amanda served as program director of the Healing Place for Women in Louisville, Kentucky. She graduated from the University of Louisville with a master's degree in social work. Welcome to Justice Counts, Amanda. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We're delighted.
Tell us about your background in terms of prison. You went to prison, is that correct?
Yeah.
What happened, and talk to me about what led to that problem.
Yeah, so I'm from Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky. So Appalachia. Unfortunately, my mother was involved in the criminal justice system. She was actually a survivor of domestic violence and had substance use issues. And back then, folks never talked about trauma and how to deal with it. So she used drugs. So I remember the system being part of my life for as long as I can remember. And then when I became a teenager, that's also the time that opioids in my neck of the woods really started saturating our entire communities. Around here, we have a lot of former coal miners at the time or folks who had been hurt, and Oxycontin was just everywhere. So started getting arrested at a very young age, cycled in and out of county jails. And then in my mid-20s, I went to prison. I got 2 5-year sentences for trafficking 2 prescription pills. I know, I see people's faces. So it was first-degree trafficking, and went to Kentucky's only maximum security prison for women. Stayed there, got shipped across the state. Like I said, I'm from a loyal community out in Appalachia. My family didn't have the means to come visit me or anything else. Got shipped in the middle of the state. I ended up serving in prison only 13 months, and then went to a DOC halfway house and was there for 17 months. So, yeah, that's some of from the age of about 18 to 27, I grew up in jails and prisons here in the state.
So let me get this straight. You were sent to 2 5-year prison sentences?
Yeah, I got 2 sentences because
for 2 pills.
Yes, I sold a pill to my friend in one, and then the other one I was in the same room with my boyfriend who sold a pill. So
it was 5 years per pill.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Purdue Pharma, you didn't even become a billionaire, right?
No, I sure did not. I sure didn't.
Oh, man, I'm telling you what, that's crazy.
So, for lack of a better way to say it, I presume prison turned your life around a bit?
Not prison. Unfortunately, when I got there, I thought, because I'd had substance use issues. Like I said, when I was a teen, I started experimenting. I ended up in a car accident and got prescribed. So I'd had substance use disorder on issues with substances for a while. So when I went to prison, I thought, okay, and I'd kept trying to go to treatment out here. We had nothing like that. I would cycle in and out of detoxes, even psychiatric facilities, because I just couldn't stop. And I didn't understand why. And so in prison, I thought, okay, I'm going to try to make the best out of this. Maybe I can get some help.
Ask you about that. Does an incarcerated person automatically receive help with addiction and treatment, or does
No.
it depend on where you are, or if you requested? What's the story there?
Yeah. So no, they do not. And you have to request it. And the whole time I was in prison, I sat on a waiting list. I never, ever got into treatment the whole time I was in prison.
Wow. I'm just wondering if there are gender differences in medical treatment. Do women in prison receive the care that's necessary or appropriate for their gender?
No.
Well,
And
first they have to receive it. First, they have to receive it at all.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. People of all genders do not get proper medical care, but particular for women, if you think of pregnant women or women that are, we're like getting into it now, but women that are menstruating or have other female specific things going on, often these correctional institutions won't even provide you with the hygiene products that you need. And I'm not exaggerating that. Often when you're in jail or prison, you may get like a roll of toilet paper a week and maybe a few sanitary napkins. Around the nation, even to this day, we have states that shackle women while they are giving birth, while in labor. Women are shackled to hospital beds. And for women and men, that when it comes to folks that are incarcerated, that population has such high levels of trauma in their past. So none of that is addressed. I could go on and on. Even while in the facilities, you'll see high rates of sexual abuse. I remember when I was in prison, we were all sitting there and we had all these women, we had these drug charges with like wild sentences. You all heard my sentence. And one of the correctional officers actually sexually assaulted 9 women in the prison and he got probation. And we were sitting there, what is going on? And never did anybody get any kind of treatment. If you have things like hepatitis C, medical care in jails and prisons across the United States is truly, in my opinion, a humanitarian crisis.
This isn't limited to Kentucky.
No, it's not limited. Now in my role at dream.org, I get to work in states across the nation, and it is absolutely not limited to Kentucky, sadly.
So you're watching TV and somebody gets shanked in prison and they get sent to the prison clinic or whatever they call it. And some doctor's there, and then it's too bad for him to treat. And they go to a hospital and get shackled to a bed. That's not realistic. That's not how it happened.
That injury would have to be pretty bad to even get to go out to the hospital to receive that type of care.
Right.
But then you would be shackled. And often these places, these jails and prisons, aren't set up to really provide medical care. So you have to think about it. You come back. I remember I had a wound while I was in county jail and got put in a 10-person cell with 20 people. And the conditions was unsanitary. And all the doctor had kept telling me is take care of this wound, keep it clean. I had no supplies. I had no nurse that helped me. I was literally like laying on the floor because I didn't have a bed, trying to pack this open wound and keep staph out of it. It's really something.
Before we get to your life out of prison, What changes are necessary in prison to correct this medical system problem that they seem to be having?
Yeah, absolutely. There needs to be more medical providers within jails and prisons. There needs to be better facilities and places set up within them to accommodate folks with medical needs. And that's just on the physical side. And when I think of mental health, there's so much more that we should be doing. And there should be more substance use disorder programs, more mental health programs at large, more programs that deal with trauma. So, yeah, we just need like a complete rehaul with more resources. Yeah.
That kind of leads me into my next question. You're serving your time. You're about to get to the end of your sentence. What steps are taken in prison and during the release process to help a prisoner reintegrate into society?
None really. My story is I did transfer to that DOC halfway house. And then when that was over, it's time to find what they call a home placement. So I had to find housing, or if I didn't have a stable house, I could go back to prison because I would be violating my parole if I didn't have a good address. So I had these felony convictions on my record. Nobody wanted to rent to me. And it's such a easy population to exploit because you have to think about it. You can discriminate against somebody based on anything and just say it's because your felony conviction. Truly, so many like civil liberties and rights that we take for granted. Those folks with those felonies on their record do not have them. That's just true, especially in a state like Kentucky. I couldn't even vote. So also, you have all of these fines and fees that are coming at you. And if you don't pay those, you're going to be revoked.
What kind of fees?
For court costs, you can have a probation fee just to be on probation. In some states like Kentucky, I owed a jail fee because you actually owe money every day for being in jail. I had drug testing fees because when I went and saw my probation parole officer, I would have to pay those. So all of those are due. And like I said, if you don't pay them, you can be revoked. And then, so you already have these felonies on your record. Getting a job's hard, but some jobs that may help you make money quicker, like serving jobs or even bartending jobs, you're not allowed to do those. I wasn't allowed to be anywhere around alcohol. This is a real Kentucky story right here, but I needed to get my first month's rent and my deposit because I'd finally found a house. Well, a room. It wasn't a house. It's about the size of a closet. And I paid, you'd have thought it was a fancy apartment in New York. I paid so much money for it, but I needed this deposit and first month's rent. So I went and worked at the Kentucky Derby. Like I said, super Kentucky story. Served folks on Millionaires Row, all these rich folks, some alcohol, and made in 2 days the money for that deposit and that first month's rent. But I almost went back to prison. I almost went back for working at the Kentucky Derby.
Is that a problem that's nationwide? It's not just Kentucky, right?
No, it's a horrible problem. The way that we really set folks up for failure when it comes to reentry around the nation, even something as simple as an ID.
How much did all of those fees come to that you had to come up with?
Oh, it was thousands of dollars.
What if you don't have the money?
You go back to jail.
Yeah.
And then you rack up more fees because you're in jail and they want you to pay more fees. What is it? A room and board thing? So much a day?
It's a never-ending cycle.
Exactly. And when you hear things like recidivism so often, it isn't necessarily someone going out and committing a new crime. It's these collateral consequences after that first conviction, which ends them, they just can't get out of that cycle.
I presume some prisons have a reentry assistance system.
Some prisons do. And
if you have one that does, are there any statistics that would show how much more successful a prisoner is when they receive assistance versus those who do not receive assistance?
yeah, when you see community-based reentry services, or just look at reentry and recidivism at large, the two things that decrease recidivism the most is employment and education. So when you have a reentry program that helps folks find a job or does something like takes away fines and fees so they can focus on employment, you always see those numbers go down.
Are there differences in the reentry process for men and women? Are women treated differently than men? We'll hear about that when we come back from this quick break.
I don't know if I would necessarily. There is differences because often women, just statistically, are more often to be a primary caretaker. So often, if a woman is incarcerated and has custody of their children, that's one of the biggest collateral consequences that I see with women, because they often lose the rights of their children. Often when they reenter, also, some of the jobs that maybe will hire people with felony convictions, some of the labor jobs, or even, I remember for like a month, I went every day to a day labor place and tried to go work to build cabinets, and they would never pick me. But there would be a lot of men they would pick. I'm probably going to build cabinets anyway. I was just desperate. I was like, I got to get money to pay these fines and fees, or I'm going to go back. Somebody let me build something. But often those jobs, women may not have the same access to those kind of jobs.
Did you have any experience building cabinets?
Not a bit. I was going to figure it out. I knew the job that folks hired people with felony convictions, and it was decent money. So I was going to learn. I never got a chance.
You got pardoned, is that right?
I did.
And how did that come about?
Yeah. So I'd been trying for years. I tried under a couple of different governors, and I had wrote letters, had everybody in the community writing me letters, college professors, faith leaders, clients that I used to work with. The Kentucky Chamber of Commerce wrote me a letter. Anybody that could attest to my character. And I'd got turned down by one governor. And then finally, Governor Matt Bevin a few years ago, I got a pardon. And I remember I was on a podcast when I found out. I was on a conservative podcast, and it was me and some conservative folks talking about how criminal justice, how you can find common ground, no matter your political party and I had kept checking the governor's website, the Secretary of State's website, to see if he was issuing pardons. And I saw that I'd got a pardon, and I just lost it. It was like sloppy crying. I texted my son, who was 15 at the time, and he was freaking out and called me, and he was crying, and it was one of the best days of my life.
Did you have to apply for that pardon, or?
Yes, you have to. Yeah, it's a hard application process, and yeah, I applied for it numerous times.
So you're out of prison. There's not much in the way of reentry assistance, as you've described. Talk about your post prison experience, what are some of the injustices or discrimination you have personally faced trying to reintegrate into society?
Yeah, so looking for housing, like I mentioned earlier, that was rough. Nobody wanted to rent to me because of these felony convictions. Finally, me and two friends found a house. The rent was astronomical. Like it was so high. And I lived in a room about the size of a storage closet, which at that point I was used to because all the institutions. And I tried to find a job, and that was a nightmare as well, because not only do I have these felony convictions, but I also am on active supervision. So that means a minimum of once a month, I have to take off a full day of work to go sit in a probation and parole office. So it's really hard to explain to your employer, yeah, within my first 90 days, at least 3 full days of work I'm going to miss because I had to see my parole officer. That pretty much the interview's not going well once you say that. So I started working 3 jobs. I was a caterer for a staffing company. So that was just whenever they had an opening or an event that I could cater. And then I cleaned houses part-time. And then this man who had a counseling facility, he gave me a part-time job there, setting up appointments, doing receptionist work. So I remember sometimes I would have a bow tie because I catered like conventions and stuff. So that was like I would have a bow tie on getting ready to go clean houses. And I'm like, this is not the right job. I was working 3 full-time jobs, 3 part-time, almost full-time jobs.
Can I stop you for a second? Because I'm a little confused. I want to hear the rest of this, but if you're pardoned, why do you have to go through this process? Aren't you now?
Oh, I didn't get pardoned for years later.
Oh, okay. So you
So
got
this
out
was
and then,
well before.
this is pre-part. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I only got pardoned a couple of years ago.
But getting pardoned means the whole thing is expunged and gone, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was doing my 3-job, whatever, carnival that was happening. And I really wanted to go back to school. I'd always wanted to go to college. Nobody in my family had graduated college. I started going to community college at night, took the bus around till I saved up enough money to buy a car. Eventually, I wanted to transfer to university. I wanted to go into social work. And at first, it was a little sketchy on whether I could get in or not, because for college, they ask you, have you ever been convicted of a felony as well? So I had to write all these essays and get letters again and plead my case. And I finally got in. I just couldn't live on campus. And it was a rough go of things.
Does the requirement to answer that question yes get eliminated by the pardon also?
Yeah. I still wasn't pardoned. I was out of prison.
I know, but do you have to answer that? Have you ever been convicted? Yes.
No, not if your record has been expunged.
Okay. Because theoretically, if you're going to be honest about the question, have you ever been convicted? The answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
That you were pardoned later, it comes later. But at least that's the lawyer, what the lawyer in me would say. But I'm glad to hear that the entire idea of a conviction is expunged. That's good to hear.
Yeah. So I ended up working at that halfway house that I went to after prison, and eventually became the director of that. The first woman, with a felony conviction to do that, and really worked with the women coming out of prison and their families. It was like the joy of my life. I saw a lot of folks with mental health issues, a lot of substance issues, and it was hard too because I kept seeing the policies. I would tell these women, and just do what you're supposed to do and everything will be fine. And then they couldn't find housing, they couldn't find employment. They were losing custody of their kids, even though they were doing everything right. And it was just devastating. And had this father who had called me, and his daughter was 19 years old and died in a county jail. She was detoxing from drugs, and they hadn't came and checked on her for 15 hours, and she died there alone. And he would just call and check in on me because, I'm in recovery. I don't know. We had just built a relationship. And he said, Amanda, I really wish somebody could do something. And I said, me too, but it can't be me. I can't change anything. I have all these felonies. And that night I went and prayed for this guy. Truly, I prayed for solace for him and comfort. And the next day, there was a job application that said, if you have experience with the criminal justice system, personal experience, you are strongly encouraged to apply. I had never seen anything like that. It had always been the opposite. If you have experience, don't you even try it. You're not going to get this job.
Right.
So that's what got me into advocacy. And since then, I've been able to work to pass expungement laws. I've been able to work to provide better substance use disorder treatment for folks. It's just been, something.
So is that what dream.org is all about?
Yeah, dream.org is all about making changes around the nation to close prison doors and open doors of opportunity. How do we make it so that prison isn't our default for everything? Because it's not working. What we're doing right now is not working. So how do we do something different? And we do that by following the lead of directly impacted folks and coalition members within our states. So that's what we do.
So did you start this organization?
Did not start dream.org.
Okay.
I'm very fortunate to work here, though.
Okay, good. So the injustices faced by former inmates that you're most focused on, they are what and why?
Education's really big to me. I think that scares me when folks that are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated is blocked from education because it's so powerful. Also, we have to continue to push for expungement laws to give folks an opportunity once they've been out for a while, once they have done everything that they're supposed to, contributing to their community, to be able to get those convictions off of their record. Those are some of, and there's a lot more, but those are some of the big ones.
I'm sitting here thinking, here's a person that was convicted of a petty theft or a small crime of some sort. And now they've got this blemish on their record for life, and they're going to be treated poorly, as you've described. And you're a prospective employer. It would seem to me that there's nobody you could possibly employ that would be more dedicated to turning his life around and being a good employee than that person. Is that true out there or not? Do most employers not want to hire somebody in that situation?
Yeah, I would say that tide is really turning. We have more second chance, fair chance employers now than ever. When you have the Chamber of Commerce and labor unions both coming out and saying, hey, we should hire formerly incarcerated people. And when you have studies coming out that show just what you said, you hit the nail on the head, that retention rates are higher, those are the folks that will stick with you because of that, like you said, because of that second chance and how grateful folks are. So we're turning the corner, but we're not close to being there. Formerly incarcerated folks, people with felony convictions, can get turned down for life insurance. I could not get life insurance. I have children and get turned down for credit cards, for jobs. We're making progress, but we have a long way to go.
Thanks to Obamacare, you can get health insurance, though, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Was that something you couldn't get before?
I'm not for sure because
I'm not either, but I'm glad you can. Aside from hiring people, aside from insuring people, what can the average person, those of us who have not experienced prison or been involved with the prison system, do to help alleviate discrimination against the formerly incarcerated?
Yeah. If you are a business owner or if you are a landlord, take that chance. I've even seen in my community, if you're part of the faith community and go to a church, I see my pastor now like doing outreach to formerly incarcerated folks, giving them chances. Or if you really have a passion for this, join an advocacy group. Sign up to be part of dream.org and our empathy network. Find out about what's going on in your states, what kind of reforms we're working on. Yeah, those are just some of the ones that pop into my head. And like that stigma, maybe when you're around your kitchen table or it just comes up when you hear some narratives that aren't true, fight that back. You can be like, listen, I know this girl named Amanda and she's been in prison. She's all right. People deserve second chances. So yeah, I think everybody, and this kind of stuff makes us safer. I assure you, like keeping me from getting a good job or keeping me and my children from having a safe place to stay does not make our community safer. Now I'm a taxpayer. Now I get to go visit my kids' school. I get to contribute to charities here. So, yeah, other people deserve that chance.
Robert, we got another one of those injustices that doesn't happen in court.
Yeah.
A person who's been rightfully convicted of a crime serves his time, does his penance to society, is still screwed out there, and that's an injustice that we need to help prevent.
Yeah. Okay. Amanda, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I don't. I just appreciate meeting y'all and getting to talk about stuff that's near and dear to my heart.
This organization, dream.org, how can people get involved with that?
Yeah. Visit our website. It's really easy to remember, dream.org. Just come on over there, sign up for our empathy network. We have members in every state. We work on the state level, federal level. We're just building a community of directly impacted people, of allies, people that are passionate about this issue and criminal justice. So please come over there and join us.
Okay.
Hey, Bob, before you close, I'm looking at a little blurb that was written about Amanda's Clean Slate initiative. And it says, I could work in any field, go on field trips at my children's schools, get loans easier, and even get life insurance. Those are things you're doing now?
Yeah.
And you're doing them successfully? People are getting those kinds of benefits out of this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great news. I'm glad to hear it.
Oh, thank you.
Good work. I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Amanda, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Really has. Hey, guys, thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Amanda. Clearly, she's had a lot going on in her life, and she's doing a lot of good things now. Now another quick break, and I'll be right back with some closing comments. If you haven't done so already, please check out Mark Bellow's Ripped from the Headlines legal thrillers. They're all available online at Amazon and other major online booksellers. Mark is quite the hero in Attorney Zachary Blake, who fights for justice on all fronts. His books are Betrayal of Faith, Betrayal of Justice, Betrayal in Blue, Betrayal in Black, Betrayal High, Supreme Betrayal, Betrayal at the Border. You Have the Right to Remain Silent, and his latest, The Final Steps, a Harbor Springs cozy legal mystery. Also, he's written a wonderful children's book about bullying, Happy Jack, Sad Jack. For more information, just check markmbello.com. Now, until next time, this is Bob Gaddy for Mark Bello, signing off for Justice Counts.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Bob.